Your Highnesses, my dear friend, Coordinating Minister, His Excellency Gargawi, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and honor to be back here at this meeting. I couldn't imagine a topic which is more important for the future of the world, and particularly for this region, than the relationship between governments and innovation. I will talk about three major developments, the new context which we face in the world, and how they impact on us and particularly on governments. First, what we see in the world is the collapse of trust. We see the collapse of trust between nations. We see it between religions. We see it particularly also in terms of the trust leaders enjoy, business leaders and political leaders. Now, what do we have to do to restore trust? Of course, we need honesty, we need morality in leadership, but we need particularly responsible leadership. And I emphasize the word responsible because leadership has to respond to the needs of those who have entrusted us with leadership. And in this respect, I have to commend this country and its leadership, particularly His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Vice President and Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates and the ruler of Dubai, for the vision with which this country is led. The vision is to be the most competitive country. And ladies and gentlemen, in our competitiveness report, 4 years ago, the UAE was at place 27, then it moved to 24, then to 19, and now it's the 12th most competitive country in the world. But I would say the vision comprises also to be the most modern country, the best governed country. And people today say, and you mentioned it, Your Excellency, people today, they need an identity. They need to be proud of something. To be proud means to belong to the most competitive and the best governed country. The second element of the new context, which I want to mention, is that we are moving in a post-crisis world. Until a year ago, we were in the post-crisis world. We felt that the world would come back to the same growth rates as it has seen before the crisis. Now we know that with deleveraging taking place, or still having to take place in Europe, in Japan, even to a certain extent in the United States, with what I call the midlife crisis of some emerging countries, we will have an economic future, at least for the next years, which will be more characterized by low growth and not by fast growth. What does it mean for governments? It means to be nimble, it means to be efficient, it means to be agile. It means that bureaucracies have to be replaced by meritocracy. It means that governments have to work very closely together with private business, because the challenges of the future and the opportunities of the future can only be seized through cooperative efforts between governments and business. And business, particularly in countries which were used to rely on the richness of resources, have to treat private business as a true partner in shaping the future. In this new world, even for a country like the United Emirates, there are tremendous chances. Because in the new world, it's not anymore the big fish which eats the small fish. It's the fast fish which eats the slow fish. Now, the biggest element of the new context which we are facing is what I call the new technological revolution. And the technological revolution we face is different from what we have seen in the past. There are three elements which differentiate this technological revolution. First, it's disruptive. In the past, we had technological revolutions which came at a relatively slow pace, like long waves in the ocean. Today, technological change happens like a tsunami. You see small signs in the sea, and suddenly the tsunami is here. The second element, why this technological revolution is different, is the fact that it is a system innovation which we require. The world and technology and production is so interwoven, so if you change one element, the whole system will change or has to be changed. And on the other hand, each element in the system depends on system innovation. I will give you some examples later. And the first and the third big difference of forthcoming technological revolution is the fact that it is not so much changing what we are doing, how we are doing things. It's changing us. It's changing our lives. Just look at the impact which the internet had on the notion of privacy. The young generation has a completely different interpretation of privacy compared to us, the older generation. So today, we have actually to integrate a physiological life with a digital life. So this has great impact on supply chain, on business models, on competitiveness, on governance. I give you just one example in terms of business models. I called recently the CEO of one of the largest aluminum manufacturers in the world. And I told him, you are lucky, you are not so much impacted by technological change. And he said, no, you are wrong. Three-dimensional printing, the new revolution, the next phase in the revolution of the internet, will completely change our supply chain. Now, if we look at competitiveness in this new technological revolution, competitiveness will be driven by innovation. It's not anymore capital. It's not anymore natural resources. It's innovation which has become the decisive competitive advantage. And I have argued in the past, we are not anymore in the age of capitalism. We have entered the age of talentism, because it's a human capability of imagination, of innovation, which drives the economy. If we look at governance and governments, and if we look at innovation as an ecosystem, governments have an essential role to play. Innovation comes mainly and creativity from the private industry. But governors have to be the catalysts inside this ecosystem. Let me just give you some big directions of technological change. And congratulations, Your Excellency, practically all those dimensions I will now mention are contained in the program over the next 48 hours. We will see the second wave of the internet revolution. And here, of course, we have machine-to-machine interaction, we have wearable computing, we have three-dimensional printing, we have big data. And all those together will create a completely new tsunami force of the internet, which will change every single industry. Many people speak about Uberization. Uberization, you know, Uber, but this will not be only taxis which will be upset. We will see a trend to an economy on demand. And at the end, you will have an app for each of our needs, but also for our public needs, for our needs related to government services. So I would speak about the Uberization of the economy. And then you have the second big dimension of technological change, which relates to robots, to drones, combined with artificial intelligence. And I have to congratulate you again, what you are doing in terms of drones. It's just very pioneering. And finally, maybe the biggest impact on us, particularly as far as we ourselves are concerned. I mentioned the new technological wave is changing who we are. It's the research which is going on in biology, in genetics, with brain research, with regeneration of body parts, with many other elements like enzymes and so on. Just to give you one example of what I said before, the systems innovation. If we make progress, what we are doing at the moment in treating cancer, in replacing body parts, this will again prolong life expectancies by a number of years. And actually in Switzerland now, every second baby which is born is expected to have a life of more than 100 years. Now this leads quite to tremendous social implications, aging. So you see the interrelationship between innovation, economic development, social development, and you see the need for business and governments to cooperate in this respect. I would like to make some betting with you. When we meet for the 20th, I hope I will have the pleasure still to be invited for the meeting. When we meet for the 20th Governance Summit, you will use an app like Uber, but not anymore to call some driver, but an automatically guided car, a self-driven car, will come to your hotel or wherever you are and will bring you to the airport. Actually, I had a discussion some months ago with the mayor of Los Angeles, and you know Los Angeles is one of the cities with the heaviest traffic, who told me in 2030, Los Angeles will be private car-driven free. And this will allow to transform highways into parks and other public spheres. Or another bet which I would make with you, when we come probably not at the 20th, but already at the 10th or 15th meeting, we will pay, not necessarily with bitcoins, but with other, what they call cryptocurrencies. So the impact of virtual currencies and so on the banking system, we only start now to understand. So what does it mean for governments? It means the 3 E's. Let me start with education and training. Since this technological wave is coming so fast, The government has the obligation to prepare its people for the changes. Otherwise, it will face a negative reaction, because people do not like change in general. So what we are doing here, Your Excellency, and what is done under the leadership of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Vice President and Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates and ruler of Dubai, is extraordinary. Because with this meeting, with the exhibition, with the examples, you prepare the people for the great technological innovation which will unfold in the next years. But it's also important to develop skills. And here, of course, virtual education plays a very big role, and I'm happy to see that it figures very prominently in the program. So that's the first E, education. We have to change our whole educational systems. The UAE could be one of the first countries which adopts really, in a very structured way, lifelong learning systems. The second E is engagement and public-private cooperation. I'm very honored to speak here for the first time as the representative of the World Economic Forum, now transformed into an international organization for public-private cooperation. We need business, governments, and civil society to work together, to understand what's coming, and to shape those ecosystems, to shape the solutions. And it has to be done jointly. The third element, the third E, after education and engagement, is empowerment. And here, I'm thinking particularly also of the empowerment of women. No society can afford to leave out half of the population in terms of its creative efforts. And we know that women are particularly creative. So let me end by saying the government in this new world has to shape the innovation systems as a catalyst, as an integrator, as a promoter, and it has to equip and empower each citizen with the services, the capabilities, and the future-oriented vision to perceive changes as opportunities so that the citizen can build for himself and for society a better world. Ladies and gentlemen, the future will show us, of course, there are losers and winners, or winners and losers. I would say there are pioneers and laggards, and there is no space left in between of those two. I'm sure that you will all leave this meeting as pioneers and as pace setters for the innovation to come. Thank you.